Okay, so we're going to go to the next part of Hilchos Tzedakah, which is Nidrate Tzedakah, to make a neder. Baruch Hashem, today everybody's very well trained, I should say, to say B'li Neder. But you never know. You know? We'll see. There are cases where we don't say B'li Neder.
We don't say it?
Sometimes you don't. The Gabi, does the Gabi say B'li Neder?
Yeah.
B'li Neder, he says B'li Neder.
Yeah.
Unless you get away easy.
We don't even snodder upstairs.
What?
In the shul, they don't snodder. They don't snodder. They don't ask for a commitment.
Yeah, they give you
No.
They give you a card. And a little
They
clip
give
in
a
it.
card. They give you a card.
They say
and say,
Mohammed.
Ba'avur Reb Yaakov ben Reb Zan, Mevarech Esau.
Yeah.
Right?
Come on.
And that's what they do. That's what they do. And they give them a card.
Oh, they give them a card. Okay. Okay, they're afraid people might make a neder and forget, I guess.
Is that when you put the
Fill a
paper
card
clip
on, that could be it is, writing Ksav.
I treat it.
Question is, that's a neder.
It's got a little clip on the card and you just...
That's so, it's good shiloh, it's a good shiloh.
If you get that, you know, with the car system, they put clips. What happens if the clip moves by the time it gets to the office?
It moves.
No, it can
It
happen.
moves over from 100 to 1,000.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a machlokes.
Yeah, it can
The
happen.
brother of it does, if you think you can afford more, brother you can.
Okay, so it's a halach in Shulchan Aruch that says tzarich lizar, a person should be careful in the leader not to make a neder. Poiskim tzedakah v'tzarich lifsek imohem yoyme b'loy neder. It should say b'loy neder. If he has to say a psak of tzedakah, he should say b'loy neder. And the truth is, there's a few in Yonim over here. But pulling in just the background a little bit.
Is that in case he forgets or...
Why would a person make a neder? Why would a person make a neder? Yeah, in case he forgets, we say b'avoy nedarim, ishta yibnei beisay mason. It's a very serious problem if someone makes promises and doesn't keep it. Someone makes nedarim and doesn't keep it. It has a very serious effect on him. So therefore, we're very careful not to make a neder. And even though there's actually a mitzvah, sometimes there's a mitzvah to make a neder. That's the same thing we learn out. The Gemara says to be makdash a carbon. It says Hillel would never be makdash. He would be makdash to behemoth before you're makav it on a mizbeach. So Hillel wouldn't be makdash it until he actually came to the Beis Hamikdash. Gemara says because you're afraid if you're makdash it'll be like a neder, and then something happens. Maybe you'll be out of baltacha. Maybe you won't be able to bring it. So he'll make a neder. But there is. It's brought down that it's moisiv kedusha to say a neder. In other words, to say you're going to do something and to do it is actually better than actually just doing it. So, therefore, there is an inyan actually to make a neder. It's poil b'zeh kedusha l'mayla, and so a person should say with his mouth that I'm going to do tzedakah. So, especially if you do it publicly. You know, even though we're not talking about the person's trying to brag about it, it's just if they go around and they're making an appeal, let's say. Who's going to give towards this worthy cause? And you say, I'm going to give $500, so the guy next to you feels, okay, I'll also give. And the guy next to him feels, so it really spurs the oilam on to give, so that's a tremendous thing. So therefore, Nidrate Tzedakah is a very important thing. But nonetheless, it's a problem if a guy does it with a neder. So therefore, if a guy does it, he should give it right away. He shouldn't make a neder unless he's mamash about to give it, like Hillel, he's about to give it, or he should say b'li neder. Now, we're going to come back to soon. There's another thing. If a person says something is tzedakah, I raise that tzedakah, that's amirasai. The Gemara says. In other words, when you say something, if you say something's hektish, right? If you say, hey, this is hektish, it's chal hektish on it, even though you didn't actually hand it over. If I say this belongs to you, it doesn't belong to you until you make a kinyan. But by hektish, it's chal right away. So there's two concepts of nidrate tzedakah. There's one thing which is promise to do something in the future. There's another thing which is actually chal immediately. If you say this sell is for tzedakah, this coin is for tzedakah, it actually belongs to tzedakah right away. So that's another thing which we'll discuss soon, the nafkaminas in that. But nonetheless, it's something called a neder of hektish, and of course, should be careful to say bli neder. The question comes up. A person makes a mishaberach in shul. Okay, you go to shul and they make a mishaberach for you. Bavur, Pliny is going to give whatever. Right? So now the question is, there's two questions. One question is, if the shliach tzibur, the gabbai, is one saying the mishaberach, does that make it a neder for me? I didn't say anything. He said it. You know? So the Marsham says, it's not a neder. The Marsham says, even if he says bavur sheyitain, how much you give? You say $100. So you say $100, okay? But you didn't say that I make a neder to give $100. You just said $100. The gabbai is the one that said the whole misha berach. So the Masham says that it's not a neder. It's not a neder.
So the oila in such a case wouldn't get the bracha.
So it sounds like the reason why he holds it's not a neder is because he says bavur sheyitain, that he will give. He will give is not a neder. You say, I promise I will give, I make a neder I will give, or I say I will give, that's a lashon neder.
Shenodar. That used to be shenodar.
Oh, now he says, even if you say shenodar, it used to be shenodar, even if you say shenodar, nodar means past tense, that he made a neder.
Right.
He never made a neder. He never made a neder. So the Mashal is saying between all of this, it's not really a neder. But there's another issue, which we'll come to in a moment. But nonetheless, the shach is mavor, not like that lahedya. The shach is mavor, he brings from a Mordechai, says like this. There's a shach. Zion. He brings a Mordechai, if you're not at al day shots, for Beis HaKnesset, so it means the Misha Beirach, Litin Staka, Hoil V'Yodeya Hagabe Shachayev Staka. I was talking about Balta'achar, but it's clear that he's chayiv to give it. So the shach is quite clear that if you have a Misha Beirach, and it could be the cases where you said $100, at least you said something, so it's quite clear in the shach that you are responsible to give it. So the Masham says it's not clear that it's a neder. The shach seems to say you are responsible to give it.
And when you say kemat not yado,
say what?
Like the Sephardim say something like kemat not yado, not to commit to a specific amount.
Matana. So matana is the general amount that's usually we say the amount that's normally expected to be given, whether it's $18, whatever the minimal amount that's normally give $1, that's something a little bit off. But it's normally give $18, whatever the smallest amount that's normally given to the shul for Misha Beirach. When you say matana, usually that's what's in mind. The guy says I specifically had in mind $5. He's neman. You could say that, but normally when you say matana, it means the amount that's generally given, and a person should give that amount. Now, the there's a Marsham says, but there's another problem. Okay, the problem goes like this. The Ramah says like this.
Is there a time limit for the?
Yeah, there's a time limit when it comes to that.
There is, huh?
Yeah, when it comes to that. Yeah. So the Ramah says like this: Im choshav beliboy litein ezer davel etztaka chayiv l'kayim machshavtoi ve'ein tzarich hamira. So this is a sugya nedarim. We'll learn daf yomi machshava. A person is machashav in his mind to give something to tztaka. The Ramah says he's chayiv l'kayim machshavtoi. So the Ramah continues and says, "Ve'ein tzarich hamira." You don't have to speak. Eladim Omar, if he says it, you kofin l'kayim. I'll explain what that means soon. Now the Ramah brings v'yesh oimrim dem loy hoitzi b'piv. If you don't speak it out with your mouth in a klum, so yesh oimrim that it's not enough. Machshava, a thought is not enough for tzedakah. You have to actually speak it out. Or ikar kasvar rishayna, like the first shita, that machshava is enough. Okay, and this is Beis Yosef and the Mechaber and Hilchos Beis HaKnesses, and you have in the Choshen Mishpat, the Machlokes is a big Machlokes whether machshava, a thought to give tzedakah, is enough to be machayiv you to give. Okay, and there are more paskins. The ikar is like the first shita. The Mechaber is not clear. Paskins. There are more paskins. The ikar is like the first shita that a machshava is enough. Now, the Pischei Tshuva says, brings from the Shuvas Shava Kohen, that if you think. No, it brings from the Das Eish that he's not chayiv, but if he says he's going to give tzedakah, so for example, at the Mishaberach, he says he's going to give tzedakah, but he doesn't say how much, and he thinks an amount, then he's chayiv that amount. So there's three shittas. One shita is a machshava is enough to give tzedakah just with a thought you're chayiv already. The other shita is you have to speak it out. And the third shita is that if you have to speak out that you're going to give tzedakah, but if you just say general, I'm going to give tzedakah, but you think a specific amount, you become chayiv in that amount that you think.
What if you even speak out an amount that you're going to give? Can you end up giving to another tzedakah?
Okay, so this we're going to have to go. Then we're going to have a share on that. That's whether you can mashana from one tzedakah to another tzedakah.
Once you
We're going to worry about that. Yeah,
Better not
whether you
do
can
that.
switch. Yeah. So that's we're going to talk about that. But so the Marsham says, since the Ramah says the ikar is that machshava works, so if a guy standing by Misha Beirach, you hope the guy standing there, and if he's thinking, the guy is saying it because I want to get a little covered, but how would you give $1,000? No, I was just joking. It's not a real neder. But if the guy's thinking to give, then else his machshava is already chayiv to give, regardless. So machshava could be machayiv a person to give tzedakah. Now, what kind of machshava? This could get very complicated. It happens quite often where aniyim are walking around and they think, I'm going to give the guy $1. I fuddle around, I find $1. By the time I find it, the guy is long, long gone.
Yeah.
So is my machshava machayiv me to give? Once you have in mind, once a person has a mind to give, and the person has to know this halacha. It's a very important halacha because it happens a lot. You get a letter in the mail or something, or you meet someone and you think, I'm going to give him this and this and this, but I don't actually articulate it. And then, he leaves. Then you rethink it, and or the emotional part goes away, and now
and you get
better things to do with my money now.
From other tzedakahs.
Right, you get requests from other tzedakahs.
The deadline for the lottery pass.
Yeah, deadline for lottery pass. So machshava to give tzedakah is machayiv a person, but the poskim say that even the shittas that hold machshava as machayiv a person, it's only if a person articulated the machshava in his mind. That means he has to be gomer b'libai. He has to say, yes, 100%, I'm certain this is what I'm going to do. If he didn't get to that stage, he thought, maybe he'll give tzedakah to this fellow, but he didn't actually, really be gomer b'libai that he's really, really going to do it. That doesn't count. So it has to be a total, complete machshava. And for this reason, Rabbi Yashav holds that when the aniyim come around and you think you're going to give the guy tzedakah, that's not called gomer b'libai, because you still have to find the coin and you have to get it to him and find him. So that's not. If he runs off, you don't have any chiyuv to give him the tzedakah. That's what Rabbi Yashav holds. Others say that once you thought you were going to give the $1, you should give it to a different ani. You can't give it to Adam. He's gone. You should give it to a different ani.
That's why I asked that question, because that's
that
happened to me. I struggle around. I find
it, the guy's gone.
But another guy looks just like him as there. Coincidentally. I'm not even sure if it's the same guy or not.
So these things, it's not so clear there was a chiyuv to begin with, and even if you did have a machshava, you didn't really care for that guy specifically. You just want to give a little tzedakah, so you could give it to anyone. That you have a right to give to anyone. But there is such a halacha of a machshava is machayiv you for tzedakah. There's a question again. We had this before. Let's say you have a person's neder be'es tzara. person has a situation, and everybody knows that something scary is happening, so you want to make a neder to give tzedakah. You know, a person could be an accident and you give tzedakah, they should get better. Or a person neder be'es tzara. Now the halachas, a person makes a neder be'es tzara, there's actually a mitzvah to make a neder. It says, Vayida Yaakov neder. Yaakov made a neder. Right, so by be'es tzara, when there's a situation, there's a mitzvah to make a neder. So let's be careful. If it's going to make a neder, we should give the money right away. Because again, you have a problem with the Durham. So the question is, what happens if the guy who makes a neder who's going to give, the money, and then later he gives money, but he doesn't think he's giving it for the neder. He just gives tzedakah. So was he yotzei his neder? So he brings down here the tzedakah mishpat from Abloy. He brings down that you're not yotzei your neder with that. You have to know you're being mekayim your neder. The fact that you happen to give tzedakah for something else doesn't necessarily pater your neder. Less, but the time you make a neder, you specify, at least in your mind, that whatever I give tzedakah for next will count for this neder that he could do. Yeah. So that's the person has to have that in mind. But nidrei tzedakah, a neder, nidrei tzedakah, a person makes a neder, would not matter it so fast, because the aniyim lose money. Even though there's halacha about Taras Nadarim, someone makes a neder, we can be matter it, but we're not matter nidrei tzedakah so fast, unless there's a pressing reason to be matter it, or there's a situation where the guy really made a mistake, and there are situations where you're allowed to be matter nidrei tzedakah, but if there's no real good reason for it, we're not matter it, even though other than the Nadarim we do try to be matter, but nidrei tzedakah we're not matter because it's a hefsid for aniyim. But if a guy's neder be'es tzara, it's a sakana to be matter. In other words, you give tzedakah and that someone should get better, and someone got better, and now you're going to be matter the neder. That's a sakana. So it's put on halacha. And therefore, unless there's a real pressing reason why we have to be matter the neder, we don't go ahead and be matter it. There's an interesting shaila. A guy made a neder. To give tzedakah, and someone else says, I'll pay it for you. Okay. Now this could be common if, let's say, I promise to give the school a certain amount of tuition or something. I have to know if that goes in Chlal Neder. And then the shver comes along and says, I'll pay it for you. Don't worry about it. So the question is, if someone else pays you at tzedakah, are you yotzei your neder? Okay, am I yotzei my neder? Now, what's the shaila? In Mominus, if I owe somebody money, someone else could pay my chayv. There's no question. If I have a debt to someone could pay it. I'm paying it for him. You tell the guy I'm paying this money for him, and it's paid up. But by tzedakah, there are two things that actually happen. There's actually a debt. I owe tzedakah money, and for that halacha is hilchas kfiyah. In the times of Chazal, when they had their own autonomy, they were kaifa on tzedakahs. They were kaifa on it. They would force you to pay. If you have an outstanding pledge, they were able to force you, however their means of forcing was, but they were able to force you to pay the pledge. So they didn't kfiyah. So there's such a halacha, because they actually you owe the money. But besides that, there's a neder. You made a promise, and there's a neder. And if you make a promise and there's a neder, you have to keep your promise. So the question is, if someone else pays my chayv, but I didn't keep my promise. So in the Yom Tov says here the tshuva, and he says that I didn't actually fulfill my promise if the next guy paid it, and therefore I'm still obligated to pay. And he says, so if the other guy pays it, perhaps he could get his money back, because it didn't serve the purpose that he wanted to do.
But if the other guy gives the money to the person who was neder,
right,
so that he can pay it.
So that would be the option. If he's mazaka the money for Pliny,
right,
so then he'd be able to mazaka the money for the guy and then pay it up. So I saw, we have the Shaila Purim coming up, and everybody is a mitzvah to give Matzah Savyonim, for example, right? Mitzvah to give Matzah Savyonim. So everybody comes, okay, I'm giving this for me, and this is for my wife. Okay, does that work? And this is for my sister, and this is for my brother, and this is for my uncle, and this is, does that work? Now, if I'm giving for my wife, to the halachas that actually does work. because the husband's mechuyev to take care of his wife, and to the point that if the wife comes in with a neder, there's a machlokes haposkim. The wife has an obligation before she gets married, and now she gets married. The husband has an obligation to clear the wife from all her previous obligations. Now, some say no, you can't be mechayev the husband to pay money that he doesn't owe. But there is a responsibility the husband has for the wife, especially if it's shared bank accounts and other things, and the money belongs to both of them anyways. So therefore, the husband could pay the matanas avyanim for the wife. The Yeshiva Shoilim, they say, be zeicher for my wife, and be zeicher it's okay, can pay it for his wife. But for other people, it's not so simple. For other people, you're paying matanas avyanim for them. They have their own obligation, their own mitzvah. If it's just a chayv of money, so you can pay a person's chayv of money, but you can't put on tefillin for him, you can't do his mitzvah for him, so he actually has to do it himself. So that's the question, if I do it for him, is he actually keep doing the mitzvah?
For your children?
For children, same question. So again, the children know bar mitzvah, that they're mechuyev to do the mitzvah. Could I pay for them, or they actually have to do it themselves?
Mm-hmm. So what's the essence of, how do you fulfill the neder? But if you write a check and you give the check to someone to give to the tzedakah, I mean, are you giving the tzedakah, or is the person who's handing over?
No, it's coming from my bank account. I'm giving it.
So that's the critical thing.
Yeah.
Whose money it is?
Yeah, well, I told him to give it. So he's giving over the money. You see, a gabbai tzedakah, what we're going to get to, a gabbai tzedakah could be have halacha v'yad aniyim. So when he collects this, if it got to the aniyim, that's what we rely on, actually. On Purim, when you give the money, you're supposed to give the matanas avyonim by bayayim. Sometimes you give it to the gabbai, and sometimes he actually gives it out that day. Sometimes he can't. So he's zoichet for the yoni. So there's a concept of gabbai is yad aniyim. But if he's not, he definitely has a shlichus to give it over.
So if the person makes a neder and he doesn't have the money, and his father-in-law says, "Here, put this in your bank account, and from that pay your stock." But it's the money. It's coming from the.
Well, that's
the
fine. He's mazaket him. He gives it to him. He's mazaket him. The son is zoichet, so then he could give it over. That's not a problem. The question is if he gives it direct, and it never went through the son. So did he fulfill his obligations? I saw from Rabbi Feinstein actually that he says it's mistava. You don't have to make a whole kinyan to mazaket to your children and to whoever. It could be that with an understanding that they both know that I'm giving this to you and it's yours and you're giving it over. He says it could be, for in today's world, that's called some kind of kinyan. There's a smichas das that's enough of a kinyan that it actually could work for them, and they yotze their chiyuv. But definitely the best thing is to give it to them, and they yotze it to whatever someone has a neder. Now again, we say b'li neder, so we're good. But if you're worried about a neder, so then the person has obligation to do it themselves.
And if you state it explicitly, like you go to school and pay and say, I'm giving this money to my son or to my whoever, so he can pay this.
Right. So again, it depends what tuition is. If tuition is an obligation, it's not stocker money, so then for sure you could do it.
No, if it's like a tzedakah situation.
If it's like a stocker situation where the son, let's say, can't afford the tuition, and for like we spoke at the other weeks, that it could be he's not obligated to give the full amount, but he pledges to give it anyways. So that would be a nidreit stocker. So then
the father-in-law states
gives it. So maybe he's not yotzei. Maybe he's not yotzei. You should give it to his son first. Let his son give it over, or could rely on Rabbi Feinstein saying that if all the parties speak out and know that it's being paid for him, that would be enough. Meisser, it's not mustava that there's a real pledge here, because usually he doesn't pledge the money. He just gets a bill in the mail. So he never pledged that he's going to give X amount. You just they say you give this amount or your kid's not coming to school. I don't know if that's called a neder.
I wonder from a tax point of view. For example, one of my kids owes $5,000 or something like that. So if they paid the tuition, then they don't get a full tax receipt. But if I give a donation to the school and I say the understanding is this is my son's tuition, or whatever, they'll give me a full receipt.
They will give you?
Well, I don't know. I'm wondering.
Probably not.
They will probably
not. They'll count it as tuition.
No, so it depends. If I say it's his tuition, it's one. But if I say I'm making his donation and they clear off,
you do it like that.
How you phrase it. So
right, could be. part of his tuition, I'll give you a donation. I hear.
Exactly.
I hear.
This is why we come here, for these good ideas.
Don't forget, this is posted and going on the.
What? Oh, who turned that?
Michael Renton.
CRA watches all these tapes.
I would never do that.
Now, a person can be shoyl on a neder. It doesn't happen that often, but it could happen that a person has a reason to be shoyl on a neder. There's a whole machlokes. I'll give you a case. There's a whole machlokes. Let's say you want to give someone stock. A guy comes around and honey, you want to give him stock. You promise you're going to give him, $1,000 for stock. Then, before you get a chance to give him the money, a few months later, the guy actually wins the lottery, becomes rich, or he starts a new business, and he actually starts making money. It's not an ani anymore. Now, what's my obligation? I promised to give it to him as an ani, and as nidreit staka, and now he's not an ani. So there's machlokes, okay? So some say that there's no chiyuv to give him whatsoever, because your neder is nidreit staka, and it's not a staka, so you're not chiyuv to give him at all.
Well, give it to another ani.
Wait. So some say you're not mechuyev. I'm potter. I didn't want to give it to another. I wanted to give it to him. I'm potter. So others that say that no. Yois b'shas the neder he was an ani. It's chal the neder. It's chal the neder. So, but in such a case, you could be shoyal on it. Such a case,
What does that mean, Sean?
you could be matter the neder.
Oh.
You go to the Rav. Now, when you matter the neder, you can't be matter the neder with saying, Rabbi, I promised to give this guy money, and now he's rich, so I want to be matter the neder, because if I would have known he's going to be rich, I wouldn't have given it to him. That doesn't work, because you can't be peseach benoiled, something that came up later, right? So you have to peseach to something that happened at the time of the neder. If I would have known something at the time of the neder, you can't be shoyal on a neder based on something that happened later that wasn't that doesn't work. Right? There's a chiluk between Pesach and Charata. Pesach, you find the Pesach in the neder. Had I known this, I wouldn't have made the neder. That could only be something which is not something which happened that's unexpected. Something that happened unexpected that doesn't work. So therefore, you can't say I'm sure on the neder because had I known he was become rich, which only becomes rich today. It doesn't happen. So the other way, by the way, if you make a neder and that guy became poor, it's very common. The guy makes it happens. A rich guy makes it that has obligations to give stock. He makes pledges to all kinds of schools and Meisser and everything. And then the market crashes, and he loses his money. Now he has outstanding promises. Now here he could. There's a whole machlokes whether he could make a Pesach and say, had I known I was going to become poor, I would have never made the neder. Some say you can't do that. That's a future, and others say, well, state in Chazal that it's a derech for a person to lose his money. It's a galgal. People get money and they get poor. You should have known that. But it's a derech for a person to lose his money, and therefore that's not called noiled. That's not called a new thing that came up. And the cash will be pesach on that. So that's a sheikh. Some sofer says that.
And can you make another without deny? I'll give this guy money as long as he cannot get rich. Or
Yeah. That definitely can make it. Can make a condition all done. But the guy didn't. He made it, and then the guy became rich. So you have to be pesach charata. You have to have a charata that I ever said. I have charata that I ever meant to give a guy money in all cases, even if he'd be rich. You have charata that in your initial intention in giving him the money, you could do. But you have to go to a Rav and be mater the neder. So there are cases where you're actually allowed to be mater the neder, even though normally we're not mater nidreit staka. But here, the reason why we're not mater nidreit staka is because you don't want the ani to lose his money. This guy's not ani anymore. So you can be mater, you could definitely be mater. So it's a machlokes also, so therefore you can be mater the neder.
And if the person that won the lottery comes to you and says, "Oh, I don't want the money anymore," is there something like that?
If he says he doesn't want, sure. If he says he doesn't want the money anymore, so I'm actually. Some say I'm actually potter because it's harei kilus neskabalti. It says if he took it, there's a sugi in the Durham that if a guy says that it's as if I got the money, so that's actually a kiyum in the neder. It's not like he's not accepting it. It's that you actually fulfilled your neder because you wanted to give him, and he really, as if he took it, That's a shayla. But the best thing in all these situations are to be matter the neder. So the person can do that. Now, that's what it brings down. If the guy doesn't want to be makabel, so then it could be a potter from your neder. Taz says a potter from the neder. Now, if a guy makes a neder stock, like we said before, and a guy loses his money, and he makes a neder gift stock, and now he doesn't have the ability to give that amount. So there's some that want to say that it blives like nidrei einsin. Nidrei einsin, there are certain adorim which I don't actually have to keep. So it's like an eines that it's something which is it's not in his ability to do. So then he could be his potter straight away. He doesn't have to keep it. He's an eines. He's an eines. He doesn't have to keep it. Now it depends what his neder is. If his neder is to give a lot of money, Tucker doesn't have a lot of money. He's potter. But let's say a guy has a neder to do Meisser. Okay, he makes a neder. They bring down possibly a case where a guy makes a neder, I'm going to keep Meisser. Okay, makes a neder, keep Meisser. I'm going to give a tenth. Makes a neder, I'm going to give a tenth of my money to stock. Now we said giving Meisser is a minhag. It's not a chiyuv. According to most poskim, it's a minhag which is kept. But the neder is stronger than a minhag, because a minhag, we said the halachas of Meisser I don't have to keep if the guy loses his money, doesn't have enough money to survive on. He doesn't have to keep it. But if a guy makes a neder, he's going to give 10% of his stock money to tzedakah. So then, that he didn't say only when I'm rich. So he actually, the neder includes even when he's poor. Whatever money he gets, he has to give 10%. So in such a kind of case, it could be nidri einsin is not enough, because einsin is if you have you yourself to go $100,000 and now you can't. But this is you're giving 10% of whatever revach you get. It may be difficult, but it's something which is possible to do. So that's a question. In such a case, a person should try to be matir the neder that he didn't mean it in such a case. There is an eitzah that he could be mafresh and take it for himself, possibly, if Taka doesn't have enough money. That's b'chlal nidrei tzedakah. So you have these cases where a person would actually make a neder. A person makes an obligation to. If a person writes a check, for a person we said he could do a neder through ksav. So if you actually write a check to a certain stocker, okay, and you didn't actually give it for whatever reason, that could be like a neder to give to that stocker, and you would actually have to fulfill your obligation. You would actually have to fulfill your obligation. So if a person writes a check and for some reason it didn't go through, it didn't work, that would be mechayiv him to write another check. Let's say he wrote a check to an organization, whatever reason it didn't go through. So it could be that you'd be responsible to write another check, because that's like you say harei zel. It could be it's worse than a neder. It's bigger than a neder. It's like you said, this money should be hektish. You have a certain amount, $18 in your bank account, which you're saying should be tzedakah, and you actually give writing over a check, and whatever reason you didn't give it over, you're still chayiv. A person's chayiv to keep it. So this could be all included in his obligations.
And if you give it and the other person doesn't cash it out, the check expires. Yeah,
so if the guy doesn't cash it out, so if that's like the Ari didn't want to be makabel, it could be a potter. But if for another reason it didn't cash in, then it could be still responsible for other reasons. It didn't work. Now there's a halacha, a very interesting halacha. Every neder has a halacha of bal ta'achar, which means that you're not allowed to push off keeping your neder. Right? If a person's makdash a carbon, he has to bring it to the Beis HaMikdash within 3 regalim, 3 yamim tovim. He has to bring it to the Beis HaMikdash, and if he delays in bringing his carbon, he promised to bring a carbon, delays in bringing it, he's over lav in a Torah bal ta'achar. Now this lav applies also to tzedakah. If a person obligates himself with tzedakah, there's a issur of bal ta'achar if he pushes it off. The halacha in Shulchan Aruch says like this: Hatzedakah harei b'chlal hanadarim. Lafichach ha'omer, if someone says harei olai sela l'tzedakah, I'm giving a sela to tzedakah, or harei sela zut tzedakah, chayav litn la'aniyah miyad v'm'icher, and if he pushes it off, over b'bal ta'achar, shar b'yadei litn miyad. So here you don't have to go, you have to give it right away. if there's aniyim around and you obligated yourself to give tzedakah and you don't actually hand it over to the aniyim, you're over al isser of bal ta'achar. Now, what are you going to do? Everybody has money they put into their Meisser account, and then they give it out at the leisure. A guy has a foundation, he puts money in. What do you mean? The aniyim around, you're over bal ta'achar. How could you push it off? So the halach is like this. Chol zeh b'tzedakah, the Ramah says, sheyesh b'yari l'chalka ba'atzma. K'shenoidim tzedakah has something else. We'll go back to that. Then he says like this. The Mechaber says, "V'adavka b'mefarish tzedakah stam. Al kodam yochel lahafish mois tzedakah shemunachim etzel t'matay yad." So in other words, a person's allowed to set aside an account and put money for tzedakah with the specific intent that he's going to give it out slowly. So you're only over bal ta'achar if you say this is tzedakah, and now it's burning a hole in your pocket. You have to give it to the aniyim as soon as you're able to. But if you have in mind that you're going to give tzedakah either for a specific purpose, and for sure can wait for that purpose, or you're going to give it out slowly to aniyim that you at your wish, to people that you want to give it to, so you could be mafresh tzedakah, and a person should be careful and specify that this account is for me to give it out as I wish. Then there's no issue of bal ta'achar. A person should get used to doing that, because unfortunately today there are plenty of aniyim around and plenty of nitzrachim around, and as soon as a person's mafresh something for tzedakah, he has an obligation to move it on and give it to tzedakah. Now, yeah.
But if he puts it in that account and he comes to him asking for tzedakah, he needs to give it immediately or not necessarily?
No. If you put it in an account which you have a right to give out slowly, so then there's no bal ta'achar. If you specify that I'm giving this out slowly over time, so that's your neder. Your neder is not to give it out tomorrow. Your neder is to give it out whenever you want to. So you're allowed to do that.
But how do you reconcile that with that story in the Gemara of Nahum Ish Gamsu?
No, that's something else. No, that's something else. That's the ani that's dying on the spot. Yeah, if ani comes to you, you have to give him tzedakah, you give him $1. But we're talking about he didn't come to you. You're here in shul. There's no aniyim here, and you say this is what tzedakah. Now I have a chiv bal ta'achar. There are aniyim in the city that need it, so I can't wait 10 months to give it out. I have to give it out right away. But if I specify that I'm going to give it out at my leisure, then he has a right to.
Yeah, no, but the question, you said that, and 2 minutes later, an ani comes to you.
Yeah, so it's a different question. It's not bal ta'achar. That's a question that only comes to you that we discuss. If a guy comes to you, how much you mechiv to give and what you mechiv to give. Yeah. Now, there's another thing, is that a gabbai collects tzedakah. There's no bal ta'achar. You can wait for him to collect it. So if you give a neder for a basic to the shul or something, where the gabbayim send out a bill and they collect it from you, you don't have to give it right away. You can wait till they collect it. That's also the halacha. It's only when you're neder to tzedakah stam, where there's not a guy collecting it, there's a gabbai in charge of it. So then when he comes to collect for you, you give it to him, but you don't have to. There's no din of bal ta'achar on that. Okay, that's the halacha bal ta'achar. It's important to know this because some people don't know. You set aside something with tzedakah, a person has an obligation to get rid of it unless. Now, I want to get back to the thing I started with, which is very relevant in Hilchos Yerusha. But a person, promises he's going to give, he has pledges, he's going to tzedakah and all that things, and he passes away. Okay, so are his Yoshim obligated to fulfill the neder of the parent? Now, there's a lot of different shilas that get involved in this seemingly simple question. There are a lot of different issues that get involved, so we're going to discuss the first one. The first issue that gets involved is there's 2 types of chiyuvim, we said. One is I made a neder, I promise I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. So you make a neder, I pledge it, I'm going to give tzedakah to whatever. So it's a neder. Then there's another issue. If I say sell a zul at tzedakah, if I say this is tzedakah money, so if the guy has a bank account and he says this is tzedakah money in that bank account, that money already belongs to tzedakah, and there's no question that money has to go to tzedakah. It's already hooked to tzedakah, but when the person was alive. The fact that he passed away and the Yoshim have it, the money's already hooked to tzedakah, that money for sure has to be given over. But the question is, if you say, I'm going to give, that's just a neder. There's nothing that's chala and it's stuck on anything. It's just a neder. So then the question is there any obligation for the children to be mekayim the neder of the father? So there's a long choice on this, and there's a tremendous arichas on this question. The choice wants to learn in the Beis Yosef that the Beis Yosef and Mordechai that the children are mechuyev to keep the neder of their parents. The question is why? The neder doesn't go be Yerusha. That was his neder. He's not around anymore. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have any mechiyum to keep his neder, and I definitely don't have to keep his neder. Why should I keep his neder? So he learns that there's actually a shibin nechasim that's chal on a neder, which means that your money becomes obligated towards your neder, and then that obligation on the money remains. And when it goes down to the kids, they have to fulfill it.
Yeah, it's like a lien on the money.
Yeah, but the chiddush is that a neder could make that happen. He actually argues the choice, and he says that there's no such thing. No such thing. And many poskim there's no such thing. There's no such thing that the money becomes meshubed for a neder. And therefore, there would be no obligation to keep this neder afterwards.
And there's also, because it only applies to neders that become known publicly. Because if he thought about committing money to something, or he said it out loud when he was alone.
You have to know. You have to know that he made such a neder. If you don't know, then of course you don't have to give it. We're talking about that there was such a promise and a pledge.
What if you say you're going to give 10% of your money, and you have $20 million, and then it drops to $1 million? Are you mechuyev 10% of when you said the higher?
If you made the neder, then yeah. If you said your neder, it depends what your neder is. If you said I'm giving from this 10%, he has to give. But if he says in general I'm going to give, so that would be included in the Hilchas Meisser.
What if he gave every year a set amount to a place or whatever?
Right, so that you're not mechuyev to, because he never made a neder he's going to give, and Pashas he only meant as long as he could. He's not around; he can't give it anymore, right?
Yeah,
so
in the civil law, there's a factor which applies to the obligation to pay donations, and that is if you pledge to make a donation, and the person to whom you're making the pledge relies on it. You say, for example, there's a building fund. I'm going to take care of 25% of the money they need.
Right.
So, and then on the basis of that, they start building.
Right.
You can't go withdrawing.
you can't withdraw. Right.
So in your
let's say
case,
the guy
yeah,
dies. What's
that's
the civil
right.
law?
Then the heirs would be liable.
applicable.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
Promissory
Sheba.
reliance.
No,
That Sheba by that neder.
Consideration.
Is that only called on karka?
No. So it all in the chassim, right? The chassim, yeah. It's a good question actually, but there is a halacha that the Yoshim are even a metalton that if they have the money of the father, they have to use that money according to his obligations.
That's like any regular coin?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Or regular chayv, yeah, even a regular chayv. The mechuyev mitzvah lefroya chayv saviyim. It's a good question. So now, but there's another issue here. There's the issue of mitzvah l'kayim divrei ames.
But in that case that you were saying, so let's say if the money is in a trust, where the children don't have direct access to the money.
That could be worse. If it's hushash b'yaracher, we'll get to it. Let me go slowly. So question number one, okay, if the money was already put aside as staka, as harezut staka, there's no question that's staka money. If he didn't, he just said he made a neder, so then you have this machloikis. Some soifer paskins like the Beis Yosef that his money becomes meshubed to the neder, you mechuyev to give it to other paskins. But Moshe Feinstein seems holds you're not obligated. We'll get to a Moshe's tshuva if we have time. Interesting tshuva he has there. You're actually not obligated, according to most shittas, to give the neder. Now, there's another question. There's mitzvah l'kayim divrei ames, right? Where the ames says something, there's a mitzvah to l'kayim his wishes and his commands. So, there's a machloikis if that applies over here also. If it applies the mitzvah to l'kayim divrei ames, some hold that it's only if it was given to a third person. In other words, the money's in trust by the lawyer or someone, then there's a mitzvah to be Makayim the Divya Meis. But if the money is still in his own house, in his own pocket, then he dies. Some say there's actually no mitzvah Makayim Divya Meis, and therefore you don't have to. Okay, that would be a question. And Bechlal, it could be it would only apply if he actually said it before he died. But if it's an old neder that he has, maybe that wouldn't be included in mitzvah l'kayim divei hameis. He didn't say it now. It's something which is an old chayv he had, and that wouldn't be around. That wouldn't have such a chiyuv. So there's a question. Obviously, each case has to be defined and looked into. But this is a question of whether the Yoshim have any chiyuv, any obligation to keep up that tzedakah. There's Moshe has a tshuva. Moshe has a tshuva. Someone made a, people like to do. They make a insurance policy, and they donate. They donated. They made the beneficiaries of the insurance policy is at tzedakah. Okay. So what does he do? He puts in, let's say, $10 a month, or maybe he puts in $50 a month, or whatever he puts in. But the insurance policy will pay out $1 million. It's going to go for tzedakah. Then he decides that he can't make the payments anymore. All right, so he wants to cancel it. The question is that considered he had a neder? Is that a neder that he made? Is that a neder that he made that he's going to keep on giving the $50 so that the tzedakah could get this insurance policy? Is he allowed to back out?
Happen later.
That's something that's going to happen later. That was a shaila that was brought to Rabbi Moshe. So he goes through this whole shaila, if there's a chiyuv for to be makayim, if it's considered a neder at all. The neder is that after he passes away, the insurance is going to go to him. So now I'm giving $50 a month or whatever he's giving, so that the money later, $1 million, should go later to the thing. So, yeah. So is that considered a neder? So he goes into this question of neder tzedakah, which he says, Moshe is holding, not Mochayiv, I'm holding up. But then he says something interesting. He says that I'm not giving tzedakah anyways. I'm giving money to the insurance. So the $50 a month is not considered nidrei tzedakah b'chlal. Okay? It's just he's giving to them. What he's doing is, he's saying that I'm going to cause tzedakah to be given. So a neder that you're going to cause tzedakah to be given, he says it could be that's not considered a neder. So he says, Alpha Bikain, a person should be matir the neder. He should be matir the neder just at Tzara Yoisa Toiv, in case it would be considered an obligation. He says he should be matir the neder.
Like a neder al tonight.
What?
Like a neder al tonight.
Yeah, it's a neder on a suffix of who said he's going to, he'll die and the insurance policy will keep it up. And who said, and I'm not giving tzedakah, I'm just giving to the insurance policy. Is a yotzes mitzvah tzedakah with it? Who said he's yotzes mitzvah tzedakah with it at all? But afterwards, a lot of the money that would have gone to him is going to tzedakah. But who said he's yotzes mitzvah tzedakah? And right now he's giving to the insurance policy.
He's not under the premium. He's
Right.
not under what it's going to be.
What it's going to be, right?
So that's tzedakah.
That didn't happen yet. And that's not his money. That's the insurance's money. So he's causing tzedakah to be given.
If he dies, it's not their money anymore.
It's not his money.
They're obligated to pay out. It's not their
Not
money.
to him. He's not the beneficiary.
So whoever is the beneficiary.
Yeah, so that's not tzedakah. So Moshe says, Meikar Adin, it's not considered a neder for tzedakah, but he still should be matir it outside of Yosef Toiv. So that's some of the shilas here. There's a lot of, when it comes to Yerusha, there's a lot of shilas that come up in this area where, father was obligated, he gave, there was an ongoing commitment to certain funds and whatever it was. And the question is, do the Yarshim have to continue giving it? Obviously, it's a tremendous chus. If they do keep on giving from his money, they set up a Karen and they give from his money, it's a tremendous chus for the father. But when we're talking about monetary shilas, you can't put your emotions in there. You got to pass him state in halacha. And sometimes, if the Yarshim are not mechuyev to give it, they're not mechuyev to give it. It's the end of the story. They could do what they want. That's always the shilas that comes up. So
especially complicated if the kids don't see the world the same way as
That's right.
Don't see it like that. Don't see. That's why these things should be, a person should have very clear and as well what he wants and how it should be done, and make a kinyan on it and do whatever needs to be done. Then you're certain it'll go that way.